We're back. We're on LinkedIn. We're going to talk with David Bradney from Garda. We've chatted briefly, David. I really enjoyed the story and the time that we talked, and I kind of want to get the audience more involved in what you do and how you've done it and what your transition was like. We've talked mainly to law enforcement folks, but your transition from the military was pretty unique, and I want to kind of explore that a little bit. So can you tell us how that went? What did you learn from that? Any kind of key points that you want to share with us there?
Yeah, so I retired out of the Marine Corps after 27 years in 2017. I started to transition actually in probably early 2016. Um, so I spent a fair amount of time kind of getting my affairs in order, just anticipating, okay, what's in front of me. And I'll tell you that whether you're a veteran transitioning or whether you're a police officer transition, there's a question that you're going to ask yourself, and really two questions, and I think they got to be in this order, and you got to be honest about this. And the first is, what are you going to do after you retire? And then the second is, where are you going to do it?
Yep.
And a lot of times people will say, well, hey, man, I'll go where the job takes me. And then they soon realize that that's not true at all. And I walked into that problem. Originally, I said, hey, I'm going to go wherever the job takes me. And then I realized that's not what I want to do. That's not what my family wants to do. My family wants to move back to our hometown. So then I realized, okay, well, where I want to do something, whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to have to do it in San Antonio, my hometown, or South Texas. And that kind of sets the stage and really provides you kind of a more narrow box that you work within. And I think that's a reasonable box, because too many people look across what they could probably do in the civilian world, and they just become overwhelmed with options or choices or where to go and what to do and those kind of things. So I would say that's the first thing that anybody who's going to get out of the military is going to have to wrestle with. The second one is that they're going to have to spend a fair amount of time working on their resumes. And I know that you're going to learn how to write a resume in TAPS, or I was a more senior officer, so I went to a course that the Navy and the Marine Corps provide called the Rule-In course, and I thought that was a very good course. I mean, it teaches you how to dress. It just teaches you how to network. It teaches you how to write your resume. But it gives you the formula for all of that. It really comes down to the details. And I would say that based on my experience right now, reading resumes, that a lot of times people just do not spend enough time crafting a resume. I mean, it's the first thing that people see. And so it really has to represent your skill sets. And so I threw out an acronym to you last time, and that's called a STAR statement. And because too often I see resumes that don't tell me really what they did, or they use too many acronyms and jargon in the Marine Corps. And hey, I get it. That's how we talk. But then it doesn't tell me a result, doesn't give me what you accomplished. So a STAR statement says, what was the skill? What was the task that you had to accomplish? What was the attribute? Did you accomplish it under duress or things like that? And then ultimately, what was the result? And what you see is most military resumes, and I'll be the first to tell you, I was guilty of this myself. They talk about, okay, well, this was my billet. This is what I was responsible for. This is kind of what I did. Okay, well, and then 3 years before that, I did this for 3 years, and this was my billet, and this is what I was responsible for, and this is what I did. And they just go through this long laundry list, and they realize, gee, I only have 2 pages to do this, and I've run out of space, and so, what do I do now? But I would tell you that most of that, when you talk about multiple things that you think you accomplished, can be wrapped up into a single STAR statement or maybe a couple STAR statements. So spend the time to truly craft your resume and eliminate as much of the jargon and acronyms as you can. I mean, most civilians understand the military to some degree, or even understand certain things about the military, or want to talk about that. But you can't hammer away with acronym after acronym and talk about military positions that really have no correlation in the civilian world. So there's that bit. And I encourage you to write out, before even writing a resume, write out and try to capture all of your accomplishments in a bunch of STAR statements. And then try to categorize all of those statements into things like operational management, um, managing a budget, human resourcing, process improvement. I mean, so if you can start to lay those out and categorize those and block those star statements under those kind of headings, when you're actually looking for a job and you find one that has a job description, pay attention to the language they use in the job description because they kind of want to see that language in resumes. So if they have a language on the billet description, you think you kind of line up to that billet description pretty well, then use the language in your star statement and then categorize them according to what they need. And I think that you'll find that, yes, you're going to leave some of the things out that you've done in your Marine Corps or in your military life that you're very proud of, but they're not interested in that. They're trying to find somebody who fits into that position. They're not that interested right away of hearing all about what you did in the Marine Corps or in the Army, right? So those are just the things that I would say you need to do right off the bat. And it takes time, and I understand it's a drudgery to go through all that, and it's painful sometimes. But if you don't get into that, then you're not going to represent yourself properly to whoever you want to get a job with. And I would say that depending on where you get out in the military, let's say that you get out where I did as a colonel, most of the jobs that I'm looking for are not being necessarily advertised. You can find them on LinkedIn, but you're doubtful you're going to find them on Indeed or Monster, right? Most of these jobs are found through LinkedIn or through no kidding networking.
Yeah, your relationships.
So if you're not out there networking and talking to people, and you don't have to be cheesy about it. That's the problem. You're not trying to be cheesy about it. One thing I would tell you is let everybody you know in the Marine Corps or in your support network within the military know that you're getting out, you're retiring, or you're moving on, because they can help you. I mean, make sure that they understand that you're moving on, when you plan to transition, and have them hook you up or put in contact with you various people that may put you in contact with other people. I mean, I let everyone I know that I was going to retire. And as a consequence, I got, hey, listen, you're moving back to Texas, or where you moving? Hey, talk to this guy, or hey, talk to that guy. And most of the time what they're doing is they're just kind of putting you in contact with somebody else. And that's how that's how I got hired. I mean, I was on a temporary duty down in Peru, and I linked up with one of the guys that I had worked with before who was also on this duty, and he was stationed in St. Louis, and he's the one that said, hey, would you be interested in working within the security services industry? And I have no idea what that meant or didn't mean, but I said, sure. So he put me in contact with the chief operations officer of this company. He interviewed me for about 45 minutes and then wanted me to fly me to St. Louis. I mean, it can happen that fast. If you're the right hole, if you're the right size peg to fit into that hole, it can happen fairly quickly. So the first thing I will say, though, is the first thing he asked for, by the way, was, you have a resume? And
your Marine Corps resume, I'm sure.
Right,
the bio resume, yeah.
Yeah, so I had already put together a series of star statements and had probably 3 or 4 resumes ready to go. But then I read the billet description real quick on what he was looking for, and I shaped that resume and I sent it to him that afternoon. And I think that's where you've got to be. You've got to be able to put yourself in a position to be able to respond to requests for your resume or conversations about, what you did in the Marine Corps. They also tell you a lot of times, by the way, make sure you develop like a 2 or 3 minute elevator speech. That's right. When I was going through all that, I thought it was kind of corny and goofy, and I felt so contrived. But it isn't, because they need to hear from you in a very succinct way what you've done and why you're going to be good for this job. So it might not be an elevator speech, but you need to boil down what you've done in a very succinct manner, or people are just going to get tired of listening to you drone on for 5 minutes. So those are the things that I think that you need to do right away to prepare yourself to retire. I mean, retirement will come in course, but if you haven't built all the things you need to do for your resume and you haven't begun to network, then you're never going to get there. It's going to be such a painful process.
And we'll hold it there. We're going to talk about next what the private sector is like, what corporate security is, in-house corporate security, and what our contract partners are like. But this has been a great conversation.